So let's go back to where it all began, back in the deep, deep past. The ice sheet that covered much of northern Europe never quite reached the southwest peninsula, although temperatures were too cold here for permanent settlement at that time. Sea levels were also lower then, and there might even have been no sea in between us and Wales. As the ice retreated, life became possible again in the southwest and in wider England. One of the people who lived here long ago is Cheddar Man, the skeleton you see in the picture to your left. He was uncovered at Cheddar Gorge in Somerset and had his DNA tested. And his DNA showed similarities with many local people still living in the area today when he was discovered. It's amazing to think there's still a genetic link between people who lived here in the dim and distant past and those living in the southwest still today. When the ice first retreated, people had no stone homes and didn't farm. They roamed the land, collecting nuts and berries and hunting for meat. They moved with the seasons. Sometimes they made stone tools, but mostly they left very little archaeological evidence. One thing we do know about them, though, is that they seem to have left offerings at springs. Evidence of religious activity appears near springs, with acorns deposited at ancient sites. Fascinatingly, this tradition goes all the way back to Bath, where there's still Roman baths today. Many of the earliest archaeological sites in England are in the southwest, particularly places like Aveline's Hole in Somerset. Bodies were interred there over a period of around 5,000 years. These include people from Mesolithic times, the earliest inhabitants, as well as later Neolithic hunter-gatherers who crossed the Channel from France and Spain. These settlers brought farming to the land. They set themselves up in long barrow tombs, chambers for burying their dead, with entrances for visits. Later, these people shifted to using round barrows without entrances. You can still see these today. On the right is a picture of the Binkham Bumps overlooking Weymouth, a scenic, incredible sight still visible. They also began settling the marshes of Somerset, places like the Sweet Track, a reconstruction of which you can see in the lower right, were ancient causeways laid across islands and salt marshes. These allowed people to cross the mud without getting stuck. The tracks were used for religious purposes too. Broken objects were thrown into the marsh as offerings to the gods. However, these people eventually faced threats from newcomers arriving from the continent. Around this time, many of the stone henges and monuments visible in the landscape began to be built. One of the most dramatic examples is Avebury in Wiltshire, shown in the centre of the picture. A village exists inside a stone circle there, and this place isn't far from Stonehenge, so here's a tip for tourists. If you want to see a stone circle in Britain, don't go to Stonehenge, go to Avebury instead. You can get right up to the stones for free and enjoy a drink in the pub afterwards. No hefty entrance fees like at Stonehenge. The people who came after the Neolithic farmers are known as the Celts. They established kingdoms in the West Country. The Dumnoni, who gave their name to Devon, the Dobuni, who were centred around Gloucestershire and Somerset, and the Durotriges, whose name means farmers of the hard soil, who farmed the chalky lands of Dorset. They were very advanced. They issued their own coinage and made incredible bronze and iron weapons and tools. Sometimes they deliberately broke iron weapons to render them unusable, throwing them into bogs, wells and other places as offerings to their gods. The Celts lived on great Iron Age hill forts, building defensive earthen ramparts around flat areas where they had their homes. These hill forts are scattered all over the West Country and are fantastic places to walk, especially when you think about how old they are. Eventually, the Celts were challenged by the Romans, who crossed the sea and landed near Weymouth, if I'm correct. You can see reenactors in the top left corner depicting a battle between the Romans and Celts. Maiden Castle was one of the most vivid battle sites. Excavations uncovered warriors who died fighting the Romans, including one with a ballista bolt lodged in his spine. You can see these remains at the Dorset County Museum today. Alongside ballista bolts, hundreds of pebbles from Chesil Beach were found, flung by locals to try to keep the Romans at bay from their fort. However, the Celts lost. The Romans were not kept at bay. They came in, built a temple on top of Maiden Castle, the remnants of which you can still see today, and they forced the Durotriges tribe to move from their castle into the town of Dorchester, where you can still see parts of Roman walls, as in the bottom left picture. The street patterns there still reflect the ancient Roman town layout. There's even an amphitheatre made of earth, and many roads around here, including the one between Dorchester and Weymouth, that follow the routes of ancient Roman roads. These were probably built upon older tribal footpaths. A map of Roman settlements in the southwest, on the bottom right, shows that settlements became denser closer to the main part of England and Wales, and sparser as you move further down the peninsula. By the time you reach the tip of Cornwall, the Cornish likely were having very little day-to-day contact with the Romans. The Cornish still claim they were never colonised by Rome. Another remarkable contribution from the Romans is the beautiful bathhouses like the one in Bath, Aquae Sulis. The baths were dedicated to the local god Sulis, whom the Romans identified with Minerva, Athena in Greek mythology. So while the Romans maintained the religious shrine, they added the entertainment complex of the baths, which remain to this day. And yet, the Romans left the southwest worse than they found it. Although they left a rich cultural legacy, the flags of Somerset and Wessex were developed from Roman cavalry standards. The Romano-British they left behind had lost the ability to mint their own coins, and their skill at tool making and weaponsmithy had degraded substantially.